and
Thank you.
Thank you for attending our training session for CPE Trial Chair and Trial Secretary. You're welcome to just intake information, but I know some of you are interested in pursuing the positions in the future, so we're happy about that. But if nothing else, you'll learn quite a bit about how a trial gets put together, and then we should have plenty of time for questions, but you're welcome to ask questions during the presentations and the discussion, and then if you have any questions at the end, we'll address those too. So what I am going to do is I'm going to share my screen.
No problem.
Okay, good. So that's where we're at, CPE Trial Chair and Secretary Training. And what I'm going to do is hand it over to Anna to get us started. Her very capable hands. Well, sorry. First, I'll go through the goals we have. And if your little sidebar of faces is preventing you from seeing the whole screen, you can move that up or down or to the side. I don't know how to make this just take up a portion of the screen. So anyway, but I'll be reading it mostly, so you'll be able to follow along. But our goals for tonight are to familiarize members with the duties of the trial chair and secretary, specifically for CPE trials, and to train interested members to take on these duties in 2023. And that is because one of the timeline facts of setting up trials is it happens way in advance, pretty much at the end of the July trial, because we do 4 trials, January, March, May, and July. Once the July trial is over, we start a conversation, who's ready to take on trial chair duties for next year, because applications have to go in, and Anna will talk about that a little bit. So those trial chairs have already been set up for 2022. And Anna is the first one on tap for the January trial. And Sue Horn is her secretary. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Agenda is to talk about the trial chair job, the trial secretary job. I meant to delete that third bullet because I don't think we'll have time, but also I think it's too much information. And that's something that's better done one-on-one with those who are interested in being trial secretaries. So forget that you even saw that. We're going to talk about what compensation is given to committee members for the various jobs they do, in particular the trial chair and the trial secretary. And then we'll have time for Q&A, and we'll talk about next steps. So now I will turn it over to Anna.
Unfortunately, my picture is not at the bottom of my screen, so that's very good, so I don't see myself. Very good. So as Chris mentioned, usually maybe a little bit before July or after the July trial, I usually send out a email to all the people that have been trial chair in the past and asking what trial they would like to do in the future, if they would like to continue. This year, generally the trial chairs we have had ongoing, I have done January. Justine Bradley does March. She has done that for many, many years. Sue Horn was doing May. Sue would fluctuate between May and January, and this year she is not, she doesn't want to do the May trial. And so I am going to take that trial also, unless someone else comes in. And July, for a while, well, we had another member was doing the July trial, and then he didn't want to do it anymore. So Chris took it over. Well, Justine took it over to have it. And then Justine couldn't do it. So Chris jumped in and learned how to be a trial chair on the spot. And
Mhm.
she did it at that point on the spot. Doing it, why we wanted to do this training was it is important for us to get more people involved in the chair, in the main position, in all the positions of trial committee, but trial chair and trial secretary are two that are more time consuming, and we need more of a variety so people don't get burned out of doing it all the time. So that's why we're doing this. So at about the main, let me see, let me stop for a minute. I have little notes here that I have to refer to, so I'm not just rambling. The important thing about a trial chair is to remember that it is representing the club for all that is attending the trial. It's like you're the face of the club. And so in my opinion, the way I see the trial chair and the judge as working together, they sort of set the tone for the trial. If the tone can be that the trial is run smoothly, the tone can be stressed, the tone can be happy, the tone can be grumpy, and sort of all of that comes from, to me, the trial chair and the judge. That if there's any of that, you can feel it because they have an important part. I mean, there's an important part that they play in the tone of the trial. So the goal to me would be for the trial chair to make sure that the impression is good and that that everything is working together. And the trial chair is the liaison with the judge and the committee and the exhibitors. A lot of correspondence happens between the trial chair and the judge, informing them of what is expected and the classes that we're going to do. So it's like, these are the main points that we have to make sure that all the interactions with the exhibitors and the committee be positive and supportive. So generally the trial chair's job starts about 6 months before the trial. And that might just be looking for a judge, trying to find a judge. Sometimes some of the very popular judges or the judges that work a lot on the East Coast, they are planned out a year in advance, sometimes 2 years in advance. Those that work like every weekend. So you have to, if you want one of those people to come in, you have to really think in advance. Generally, that's how Justine gets like Mike to come out, Mike Brownell. I think he's coming out in March, but she books him as soon as the trial's over in March. She says, do you want to come back next March? So he's there already.
Right.
So the trial chair is responsible for preparing the trial. They secure the judge. They send in the application to CPE. They figure out the run order that they would like to have at the trial. And there is a lot of help that can be given in doing that. Sometimes a person that may not set up a trial or do course building may not think too much about the work of the course builders in doing the trial, of the classes that move smoothly from one class to another. So there's a lot of help if one doesn't know that kind of information. They have to finalize the premium with the trial secretary, and they have to secure the rest of the trial committee. And in doing that, there are, again, all of these jobs that the trial chair has to do. You can get a lot of help from the people that have done it before and the people that are involved in doing it. Right now, I'm very distracted because DJ just went outside and he has to bark because I'm in here talking. So he's carrying on a ruckus outdoors. So I'm very concerned that I'm talking on this computer and he's not very happy either. Anyway, so that's what's happening here.
Anna, can I stop you for a minute? Corey, you had your
Sure.
hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask two questions. The first question is that we really didn't address whether we should be interrupting with questions now or wait till the end. So that's question one. And two, since I've interrupted you, I'm going to ask a question. My biggest fear is that as trial chair, I might have lined up a judge 6 months or 8 months or 9 months in advance. And a month before I find out that that judge is sick or broken a leg or can't come to the trial. And now, I mean, has that ever happened? I mean,
Yes.
what happens?
Yeah, that has happened before. That's happened, well, it happened to me. I was scheduled to judge in New York, and I got to the airport in Sacramento, and my flight was delayed, and it was delayed twice, and it was delayed 3 times. And the only flight I could get was out the next day, which would get me to New York Sunday morning.
Oh, jeez.
I know. So there was no way I was going to make it. So I called and I told them, and they found a judge in the area that replaced me. So generally there's always a way to get a replacement.
Oh, good.
Generally, because there are always people around, and you send out, you notify, generally they notify like the Art, who is in charge of all the judges, and he puts out a little memo on the judges list that says, so-and-so can't make the trial. Is there anyone that can fly in to California to do this trial on that weekend?
Oh,
And then someone comes. May not be who you wanted, but someone comes. It all
Good.
works.
and then which maps would you use? Would you use the
You use the maps of the judge that was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So they don't have to quickly put together. That would be a
Yeah.
freaky thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That'd be
1
like
week.
impossible.
The week before, put together those
Yeah,
stuff. No,
because
you use-
and maybe you could talk briefly, Anna, about the review process for judge, for courses. I mean, very
Yes.
briefly, just that there is a review process that CPE does.
Yeah, you submit your maps a month before, 4 weeks before the trial, and they're reviewed and sent back to you with, as my reviewer says, some tweaks where needed. That just means, she either moved, she doesn't do major changes unless it was like really bad, but she just does little angles and things like that, fixing approaches. And then she sends them to you, and then you use those maps instead of the ones you made.
Oh.
So that's what would happen. And you would use them,
Okay.
their maps.
Ah,
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other-
And
So-
to address your other question, Corey, yes, you're free to ask questions during. You don't have to save them till the end.
Good.
Yes,
good.
and I can only see 4 people on, well, I can see Colette and, I'm sorry, Mary and Corey and Patty, lost your name, Patty. I can see them on my screen right now. It's not holding out 5 people. So
Yeah. Well, what
Yeah, it's kind of
happened
strange.
was
you could
Corey,
raise your hand.
Corey actually used the raise hand functionality in Zoom, and it popped her way over to the top front of my list so that I
Oh.
could see that she raised her hand. So
Okay.
feel free to do that, or if there's a pause and you want to just interject your question, that's okay too.
Okay, so it didn't move her on my screen, so you could just say Corey has a question.
Yeah.
Okay, all righty, that's good.
And
Shall I go on?
Yeah.
Okay, so those responsibilities. And I said, the other thing that's really good in your responsibilities, well, good communication and organizational skills to make sure you keep track of who you've asked to do what, which, yes, keep track of who you've asked to do what. And I'm laughing because this week I went, oh, where did I put that list of the January people that were going to do things? Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Fortunately, it was all up here in my head and I wrote it down. Also the ability to multitask, especially at the trial, to be able to, watch everything that's going on and seeing what's happening and handle any situation or conflict that may come up in the moment, able to keep a cool head and try to not be reactive. There are things that happen at a trial that you want to just go, stop it, something like that. But you can't do that. You have to remain calm and just let, just find, like, someone can fall on their dog and they're lying flat on the floor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have
Been there, done that.
yeah, you have to deal with that. Or one dog runs over and starts wanting to play or whatever to another dog. You have to be able to just try to see what's happening without making any reactions, or try to just be as calm as you can and deal with it, as opposed to becoming real emotional about things. You do need basic computer skills. You have to, because the premium is involved, and generally Chris will talk about that more as a trial secretary, but sometimes the trial chair will put it together and sometimes the trial secretary will put it together. But you have to be able to know how to do all those things and be able to write letters, write the memos for the
Briefing.
confirmation fee, confirmation, whatever that's called. The confirmation email that goes out, you have to be able to put that together, and those can all be cut and paste and things like that. Okay. So I think I went through, let me go through these again though, because the basic things I think I said was you have 1, securing the judge. 2, you send the application in to CPE. That happens like 4 months in advance. And on that application, it just says who your judge is going to be, who your trial chair is, who your trial secretary is, the starting date of your trial, the closing date of your trial, the classes that you're proposing, not the class order, but just the classes that you're doing, the classes you want to have, and the days that you want to have, if you want 2 days or 3 days, and how you want it set up like that. And then after you do that, and you send in a deposit or a application fee with that, which you pay for, or you can tell the treasurer the amount and the treasurer will send you a check, and then you can send it all in at the same time when you send it by mail. All of this goes by mail. CPE is not on PayPal or on electronic payments yet. Then you can start thinking of the rest of the committee that you want to secure. You think of, like, you need course builders, generally 3 or 4. 4 is better than 3. You need
5 is better than 4.
5 is better than 4. And course builders are the hardest thing to come by.
Really?
Hardest thing to come by.
Okay. Yep.
Yes, indeed. You need ring stewards, chief ring stewards, generally 2 of them. Even though it's generally a 1-ring trial, you need to have that. To me, you need to have support, and they can't work the whole thing by themselves.
Right.
You need a office secretary for all the scorekeeping, a scorekeeper in the office. Generally, that's Susan Rapillis, and she needs 1 helper, I believe, if not 2. It used to be 2, but now the program does more of the calculating, so I think only 1 other person is needed in there. You need an awards person that will hand out awards when we all get those lovely ribbons that we like to get, those Kates and catches. I like to get someone that will also at least be hospitality for the judge, to make sure that the judge has something to eat and that he's being cared for.
She.
Sorry, the judge, she, that the judge is being taken care of, and the trial chair can do that also.
Are you combining? I know in NADAC, we're combining awards and hospitality these days because it doesn't seem to be a big,
Yeah, there's not that much to do.
big jobs.
Yeah.
Or awards and ribbons.
Well, that awards and ribbons are the same.
The same.
Okay.
I have done it separately just because, I
Does
don't
the
know.
trial chair make a decision on how
Yeah,
many
yeah, the trial
compensation
chair.
roles are given out?
Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
that kind of role. Generally, we have the CRS is the same, and that where there's wiggle room, because there's no more real hospitality of giving out, of doing big giant food things right
Mhm.
now.
Thank goodness.
Do you think we'll
Right.
ever go back to that?
I personally, I hope not myself,
Oh,
but the little things are good to have around. I don't know. That's
I
a
like
different
them open,
discussion.
yeah.
That's a different discussion.
That's a different discussion and financial discussion.
Yeah, that's different. So there are those jobs, and there's one more, I think. Can't think of what it is. The trial secretary and the trial chair. So you have to find the people for those jobs. And they have to be people that you feel can work those jobs responsibly. For me, when I'm a trial chair, I like to give a job to someone that I know is going to do the job, and I don't have to watch them. It's like you're in an office and you're the boss, and you don't want to constantly be going to your workers and saying, did you finish that report? Did you look at that report? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? So you want them to be on their job, but you're sort of their backup. And if a ring is not running smoothly or not, if the workers aren't there, then you sort of have to be reminding, come on, we need more workers, or let's get to the line on time, and sort of keep things going on your gate and things like that. You have to sort of just be in the background watching. So
Anna, I have a quick question on the judges.
yes,
Because it really will make a difference financially if you fly someone in from the East Coast versus bring in a local judge. And so you said, Justine brings Mike in from Michigan, I think he lives.
I think he's in, somewhere.
Somewhere.
mhm.
But anyway, so that's an expense, especially these days. I think, airfare is pretty expensive. So I know for the July trial, we tend to not get a lot of participation. So we've tended to look for local judges so that we can just cover their mileage, and it's not quite as expensive. So I just, I don't know if you had any thoughts on where we're going, like who's judging in January?
January, Dan Roy is judging.
Okay, and he's in Southern California, which
local.
is pretty local.
Yeah. March is Mike Brownell.
Have you got someone for May?
May, I have talked with Judy Greco, who is in San Diego.
Okay.
She's a new judge, but she hasn't totally been released yet. So, and I have just sort of talked with her. I would actually like for her to come out. She's just really positive, and she has a nice energy about her.
From what is she being released?
She is an apprentice judge.
Okay.
So she has been apprentice. Oh, geez. Sorry about that, Chris. She's been on this as an apprentice for like 2 or 3 years. She's done a number of trials, and I'm hoping she'll be released before May. But if not, I would have to bring a judge in from somewhere else. And there are not too many. Well, we actually have no supervising judges on the West Coast. Now, it could, I doubt that they will say, oh, Anna, you supervisor for this trial. That would be a miracle. But anyway.
Oh, and that would just be one more thing you have to do that weekend.
I know, really. Well, the supervisors really don't do that much because they know what they're doing. They just watch them and say, oh, yeah, she did that fine. So anyway, but I would like to use her because it is actually getting a little late to find someone else even, so.
Are there rules on how many times a judge can be in an area? Let's say if we had Dan Roy in
No.
January, could we bring him back in July?
No, there are no, the only rule is that you cannot do back-to-back trials for a club.
Okay,
So he couldn't, and so even for like our, for that July trial, if Todd or I are used, if we are used by hot dogs, like in May, then we couldn't do the July trial. So
right.
that's the only time. It's back-to-back trials. Dan is going to be here in January for Susan, and then in January he's coming in January twice for, which is sort of funny. That happens, which it would be good for that not to happen too, because then you know people are getting the same
Yeah.
same judge all the time, and their
Yeah.
courses are like similar, and people get weirded out. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
So
Yep.
wait,
Yes, Mary.
Back to the ribbon thing. Do you have different ribbon people for each trial? I'm sure there's carryover that, I mean, I do ribbons for scent work for San Joaquin, and I keep the ribbons at my house. I take inventories and I reorder what I need. It's not like I'm starting from scratch each time.
the Sue Horn keeps all the ribbons.
Okay.
The awards person, the only thing they have to do is Sue Horn keeps the ribbons at her house. She orders them all for us, and she
Okay.
does everything like that. And then she will
Okay.
deliver them to the site. And then the person that does awards just has to see them and keep track of the Kate and catches that might happen
Okay.
during the trial. So they have
Okay.
to watch and take those out to give to the people that
Okay.
deserve the awards.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And the only other thing that there is, like, for trial chair, we have created, or actually I think Chris created this, a nice checklist of all the things that you have to do during the trial, before the trial, this here, and it's like a checklist of going through and keeping track of all the procedures and the list of things that has to happen before a trial happens during a trial. Okay.
And that brings up a kind of a double-edged sword, Chris, which
Yeah.
I hate. I don't mean to make this any more trouble for the trial chair, but there was the CRS document that we did.
Yeah.
And and that was the documentation on what does a CRS do. And I'm wondering if that should be part of, is that a club thing, or is that I mean, we put that together, that whole document, and you and I were talking about it not too long ago. Well, where did it go? Where should it
It's
be?
on the website, isn't it?
Should it live somewhere? Should it
No, it's not on the website. Why don't we talk about that afterwards? It might not be a bad idea to collect them all and have a site on our members page where we can keep that stuff, if nothing else, on a Google Drive. But and that could be something the club secretary, not the trial secretary,
Right. Yeah.
manages.
Okay.
So let's
Yeah.
yeah. It is 7:38
Okay.
according to my clock. So let's go ahead and move on. And so I think Anna had 3 slides, and I have many more
Just
than
35.
that. No, not that many, but mine is at a way level of detail that I'm hoping will answer some of your questions. So I'm going to go through them quickly once I get to the duties section. But I'll look for your hands or questions. I do want to be sensitive to your questions, but I'm just going to move so we can get through it. So the trial secretary is responsible for all of the paperwork associated with the trial. That's the biggest thing, in addition to, of course, entering in all the entries, because you can't get the paperwork until you enter in all of the trial information and all of the exhibitors' dogs information and all that. And so most of your time is utilized before the trial. Pretty much 90% of your work is done by the time the trial day arrives. What skills are required? Again, organizational skills, definitely computer skills. And we're not talking, you know, high-end computer skills. Just be comfortable on a computer. The club does provide you with a laptop, printer, and paper. Anything you need. You shouldn't ever have to use any of your own stuff to put the trial stuff together. And it really helps to be familiar with the CPE rules. Just familiar with them, which I think most of you are. So moving on to duties, Anna mentioned that there's an application that is filled out for the trial. She'll need your, the trial chair will need your CPE ID for the application. There's always an email address put on that application. And I just wanted you all to hear this tonight. We always use the hotdogcpe@gmail.com email address for the trial secretary. So as trial secretary, you will be given the password. So that is your means of communication with anyone on the trial, because your name and this email address is going on the premium, and that's, you'll get lots of questions as the trial, trial approaches. You'll gather information and prepare the premium, and Anna talked about that. Sometimes the trial chair already has it and they'll say, hey, can you just tweak the dates on this? We're going to keep the classes similar, change the judge's name or whatever, but you'll work with the trial chair on getting the premium put together, and then you submit the premium to CPE, and there's a whole website for host clubs that CPE keeps secret. You could probably do a Google search and find it, but anyway, it's not something that is generally, you can't link to it off their website, but you'll be given that information when it's your turn to be trial secretary. Once CPE approves the premium, so they're going to look through it and make sure, it's all it's clear. And basically we reuse our premiums. I've started putting the new CPE logo on our premiums. I know it's kind of a mishmash right now. Some people do, some people don't, but anyway, they're generally the same from year to year. So it's not too hard to put together. And then once it's approved, you can go ahead and get it posted on our website. I say send it to the club webmaster, who is me. But who knows, that may change in the future, but then I post it on the website, and then we also like to advertise it on Facebook, and Anna and Debbie and myself are all able to post stuff on the Hot Dogs Facebook page. And it's really good to kind of remember to do that every couple weeks or so, to make sure people are aware of the closing date is this and such. You can put a link right there to the premium or point them to our website. So then you'll start receiving entries. So what goes on the premium is your name and your physical address. So you will be receiving entries at your home, unless you have a PO box or something. But what happened once was the trial chair, I was trial secretary for a trial chair. It was not Anna. And that trial chair put the premium together and put my address in as 1164 Portola Way, not 2264 Portola Way. And a bunch of people's entries got returned to them. And we didn't realize that until like, I don't know, a month or so before the trial. So we had to request a change from CPE, which normally they will charge us to make changes like that.
Yeah.
We were able to change the premium on our website pretty easily, but so it's really good. Don't ever be offended or concerned. Have someone review
Mhm.
your premium and you look it over, or just do that for each other so that that doesn't happen. So entries will come in. Your job is to make sure they're complete. Lots of times people leave off, and I've been guilty of this too. I didn't circle what levels I wanted to run, or I didn't include, I don't know, I didn't do something. So generally they have to be complete, add up, total up the number of runs, check to see did they calculate, their totals correctly. I'm glad our club doesn't do anything fancy like provide for package pricing or something, because I was trial secretary for Humdog this past summer, and they do this package pricing thing. It's a 3-day trial. They do a package pricing for just 2 of those 3 days, but that confused the heck out of people. And I can't tell you how many people I had to email back and forth saying, you didn't send me enough money, because they
Oh,
thought the
boy.
$90 covered the whole weekend. No, it only
Oh,
covered
my
Saturday
God.
and Sunday. Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, that's the kind of stuff you've got to check for. It's all kind of detail work. Including look at the check, make sure they made it out to hot dogs and not to WAG. Oh, and you'll sometimes get a WAG trial entry form sent to you by mistake because we have our trials so close together sometimes and people get confused. So just make sure, and if that one's usually pretty obvious because it doesn't have the same classes as what you're entering. So then there's software on our club laptop called AGTSec, Agility Trial Secretary software. And that is something that CPE gets a license for, and all of the clubs that are registered with CPE just are running it under their license. And it handles, so in that software, you'll set up the trial. All the details that you put on the application, you'll put in this software, put your name as a secretary, all the classes. And what you try to do is get all of that detailed information in there, what levels are running, which order, all of that stuff in there before you start entering in individual entries. And there's a database that CPE maintains as you update the software regularly. New people who join and get a CPE number send you an entry right after they get their number. You might have to wait a couple days for the update to actually find them in the database, but you don't have to enter in their address and all that stuff. CPE provides that information. It's already included in the software. Yes, Corey.
Is the AGTSec software using the cloud for the database? And so all the data is being uploaded to the cloud, so you don't have to worry about backing up the laptop?
No, unfortunately. It's pretty rudimentary. It's not very au courant as far as software goes. So one of the things I have a checklist that is much more detailed than what I'm showing you tonight. And one of the things I emphasize in that checklist is backup. And there's a really easy way to back up. And it just backs up to a zip file. You can copy that zip file anywhere, send it to anybody. If they've got the AGTSec software, they can pull up your trial, they can troubleshoot stuff with you, or just look at stuff if you need that to happen. But no, it's not cloud-based.
Okay.
So I did mention here the detail of making sure you have which levels are running when, what the breakdown is of standard, because we run standard 4.5C. Then sometimes we'll run standard 2, 3 together, and then standard 1, and then the next day we'll run standard 4.5C, then standard 3 by itself, standard 2 by itself. All that stuff is important to get put into the software first before you do any entries, just trust me. I won't go into that kind of detail.
Got it.
As you enter entries, and it's good to kind of keep up on them. Don't wait till you get a batch of 20, because then you'll be sitting there at the computer for an hour or two. But once you entered a handful, then you can actually use the software to send that confirmation email that you all have received. Typically, you will attach the basic run order, the one that basically looks like what the premium says. You'll attach just that simple run order to that email. It just confirms for the exhibitors what they signed up for. And don't worry if you make a mistake. People will let you know if you didn't enter something right. Corey, you have another question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put my hand down.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Not yet.
Okay, and as you get closer to the trial chair will probably be bugging you every week or so. So what do our numbers look like? You can easily run the summary report and it gives you that information. One thing you want to make sure of is that anyone who's on the committee, you have entries for them, and we'll talk about that more in a second. And then after the closing date, you don't do any printing until the trial has closed, which is typically the Monday before the trial weekend. By then, everyone should have gotten you their entries. We're fairly loose about letting people email you like at the last minute. Oh, I just sent it off in the mail and it's going to take a couple days. We're pretty loose about letting people email us what they entered or email us a copy of their entry form, and just keep notes on the side. This person still hasn't paid, you know, and make sure that you either have agreed to get their check at the trial, which is fine, or that you're waiting for it to arrive in the mail. Again, detail-oriented stuff. I can't read what this says here. Everybody's face is in the way. Oh yeah, so do all required printing for the trial, including scribe sheets, run orders, etc. And so the next, okay, we'll talk about those details in a second. I have a whole table so you can see all the stuff you get to print. If you don't know this, at WAG, there's a cabinet, and I think it's the yellow door stall, 2 off, 3 off from the office.
The Scooby stall.
The Scooby stall, okay.
Yeah.
And
Scooby
both
stall.
the Fun Paws and Hot Dogs Clubs share that cabinet. It's our supply cabinet. It's got everything in there. There's an organizer box, and I wish I had a picture of it, but it's like for files. That's typically where it's kept. Anna and I talked about maybe that should travel around with the printer and the laptop. But anyway, it's got slots in there for the run orders, slots for the gate sheets, slots for ribbon labels, you know, all that stuff. You will just be keeping it in that box. So it's helpful to have it just with you for when you're printing, so that you can just put all that stuff in there. You'll put everything in there except the scribe sheets, because there's too many of them. They don't fit in there.
Gate sheets or spreadsheets?
Scribe sheets.
Both.
Oh, scribe sheets. I'm sorry. I thought you said spreadsheets.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, scribe sheets don't
Scribe
fit in there, but gate sheets go in there, and run orders and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you're down at WAG, you know, if it's helpful to check to make sure before your trial that you have all the stuff you need, like whiteboard pens and whatever else you might need for the trial. When during COVID, we were, you know, making sure everyone had a pen, that there were, you know, hand sanitizer, wipes and all that stuff. Just anything that is needed for the trial. It's good to just check on supplies. So many people use that stuff. Our NADAC groups use it, CPE groups use it. So just communicate with everybody and say, or, you know, talk to your trial chair, say, hey, I think we're low on this stuff. Or someone might come to you and say, hey, we just used the last of the purple paper, and then you got to go get more purple paper.
I don't know if you can see me, Chris.
Yes.
There is on the front of those cabinets, because we also have a hospitality cabinet, in another one that we, in another stall that we share. But on the front of the cabinet is a whiteboard that is supposed to be used to write low on pencils or such and such. And then someone will buy those things and say purchased by whoever. I don't know that we have bought anything to it. There were lots and lots and lots of supplies in there. So I don't know that yet if we have come to the point where we need to do that. But I think FunPause has purchased things. So I don't know where we stand with that, but I know everything's in there. So
I assume, I don't know where I'm supposed to raise my hand. I'm assuming there's a supply list. I mean, I wouldn't sit there and think of everything that needs, isn't there a list of all the things that are needed?
No,
No?
but if you end up shadowing someone who's trial secretary, you'll kind of get a feel for, I mean, it's,
it's things, Patty, it's things like
Pens and pencils.
pencils and pens, pens, whiteboard markers, paper clips. Those kinds of things.
And typically there's a lot of those things in there because I know that the NADAC group did a bunch of pens on us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go through this quickly since we're running low on time. But and like I said, I do have all of this written out in a Word document that I'd be happy to send to you. In fact, what I'll plan to do is send it along with the link to the training if you want it afterwards. Yes, Colette. Oh,
You're on mute.
I can't hear you.
How do you raise your hand?
Patty, I'm don't know how to do that either.
I don't see anything that says that.
Well, it's because we're in this view with Chris is sharing her desktop that it may not allow us. But I just move my mouse and on the bottom of my screen pops up a menu bar. And on one of the things it says on the far right says reactions. And you click on
Oh,
Okay.
reactions.
Oh,
and you
Got it.
Colette, do you think your laptop is muted or phone is muted? Because we can't hear you.
Colette?
Colette, push the space bar on your computer, on your keyboard, push the space bar and then say 1, 2, 3.
Is that her thumb?
Uh-huh.
Colette, can you hear us? Hey, Colette. Hi there. She's still trying to figure it out.
She's trying to
She's
figure something
she's
out.
on an iPad, I think.
Yeah.
She may not have a space bar on an iPad, so I don't know how you hit space bar on an iPad.
Well, she was talking before.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's on 2 different. I don't know. Well, hopefully she can chime in when she figures it out. So this is just half of the stuff, but trial committee lists, I always, as soon as the trial chair tells me who's on her committee, I just type it into a document along with their email addresses. So I have everybody's information. That's just one of the documents I keep. The exhibitor catalog / run order, that's that big long run order that we post by the office. I have a note there, since COVID, we're not posting these by the ring, we're posting the gate sheets because they're a larger font.
Yeah.
So you can do what you want as far as printing that type of stuff to post, but that's just the note I made. Gate sheets, I said print only for those classes that do not have move-ups because it's a waste of time if you've got standard on Sunday, but you've got possible move-ups in standard on Saturday. Undoubtedly, someone will move up and then you're going to have to reprint Sunday's standard gate sheets anyway. So we only print the gate sheets for those classes that do not have move-ups. Scribe sheets, you can print them all, because if someone moves up from level 3 standard to level 4, that's okay. You just take you will have to manually find their scribe sheet in the level 3 stack and stick it into the level 4, 5C, but that's okay. That's just, it's not worth trying to print a single scribe sheet for one person.
Yeah, Chris,
Yes.
the scribe sheets made me think of something else that that a trial secretary will need to have, and that is a paper cutter.
Yeah.
Because, and it seems like it's just, I bought one for myself because it's been very handy to have one. So just, that's a thought. And rather than have one that moves around with all the other things.
Yeah, that's a good point. What I've used is my rotary cutter.
Right.
And my mat.
Oh, that's a lot of scribe sheets to have to cut down.
That would wear
It's hard
down
on your hands.
It's
That's
hard on
true.
your on your rotary cutter too. Paper is not.
I use it. Yeah, I typically will change out my blade after a trial.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and maybe then we need to, I don't know. I bought one for myself when I was trial secretary. They aren't very expensive. They're, pretty cheap. I guess you could be, if you were going to be a trial secretary, you could have one. Maybe the club would just pay for it. They're only like
yeah, we can
15.
talk
They're
about
not
that.
very expensive. So anyway, that was just a thought.
I've used a couple different ones, and the one Susan has, I love. I used a different one before, and the quality of paper cutter makes a big difference.
Yes, it does.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy with my rotary cutter.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, that's a good point. The measure list is a list of dogs that need to be measured because they're young dogs who don't have a final permanent height measurement. And there's 2 copies. You keep one in the office so that whoever's in the office can, look for the people who are needing to be measured. And then the judge has one that they actually write on and they sign. And when the trial's over, you need to have signed that measure list as well, you as the trial secretary. Check-in list is another thing to print. You may or may not need to print ribbon labels. I think it's varied what we've done during COVID with ribbon labels. Some trials we have not had the ribbon labels out because we didn't want people touching them and then touching pens and all that stuff. But they're usually in that organizer box, and we usually have enough. The detailed run order is the one that we normally send with the final notes email that includes all the level breakdowns, the height breakdowns, and all that. We like to post those around the facility so that people can find them. They're also posted on the website, and we'll talk about that in -2 minutes. Catch Kate list. This is the list of handlers and their dogs and what title they're going for. So someone will have said, hey, we might get our catch this weekend. All we need is 4 standards or a standard. And so just write down all the stuff I say here, the name of the handler, the dog's name, what title they're going for, and what they need to achieve it. And you'll have that posted in the office. You don't post it around for other people to see, but the office needs to have one, and you will have sent that ahead of time to your awards people. Try to get it to Sue Horn, who orders our Catch and Kate ribbons and who keeps a very limited supply of those. So she knows whether or not she needs to order more. But if she's not the one doing your awards, which she probably isn't, you also need to inform your awards committee member. We've used move-up sheets in the past, but as you've probably seen lately, we've switched to these half-sheet forms that you can fill out and just give to the office so they know to move you up. And in the past, we've also had a title sheet. We've offered, handed out ribbons when people have achieved their level, they've finished their level 1 or their level 2, and we've given title ribbons. I think I have a level 2 one hanging here somewhere. That has not been consistent the past couple of years. And I think as trial chair and trial secretary, you should have a conversation to decide if you're going to be giving those out or not at your trial. And if so, provide a way for people to know how to inform you that they've got their title. Okay, I'm going to go through this really fast. There are emails that are sent. Again, you've probably been on the receiving end of these. The email confirmation is the first thing you send out. That's sent through the program. Then about 8 to 10 days before the trial, so it's got to be before the closing date, you will work with the trial chair to come up with the content to put in the reminder email. It's primarily, hey, don't forget, those of you who have entered the trial, we need any move-ups. So if you're in a trial this weekend, we need your move-ups by Monday. And also, if you haven't let us know that you can possibly earn a title, let us know that too. So that's the reminder email. And then Monday, before the trial, after the closing, I generally will send a summary report to the trial chair, and she may forward it to the judge, or you may also be emailing with the judge just to let them know what the numbers look like, how many runs there are each day, and also do that final email to your awards committee about the catches in case possible. And then that email that everybody's been waiting for usually goes out by like Wednesday or so. That includes the final notes and when you can set up, and you know, what the weather is maybe going to be like, and things to expect at the trial. And attached to that is the detailed run order. We've been utilizing, I'm going to skip ahead to this one. We've been utilizing a trial website, and I know Susan has as well, that has everything that anybody could want. I think people are really liking having a place where they can find stuff online. So you can limit what you send out in your final notes email and just refer them to this website. We reuse this one, hotdogs.org/CPE, for each trial. And just really quick, I'll bring it up. And just to remind you what it looks like, you can see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's got everything. This was the last trial we did.
I don't see the website. I see your notes, your keynotes, or your
maybe I didn't.
Yeah.
presentation.
Maybe I didn't share the whole screen. Anyway, you can go to it on your own and take a look at it. It's got the judges' briefings, the maps, you know, all that stuff that we no longer post because we don't want people congregating. And you can work with me on setting that up. That is not something you are responsible for maintaining, but what I do need from you as trial secretary is the content, you know, the briefings and all that. So at the trial, you need to be there as early as you can be to get everything set up. So you're going to bring in the laptop, you're going to bring in the printer, you're going to have paper there because there's still printing that goes on. All of the paperwork that you've printed, you'll just kind of dump it all in the office and try to organize it so that your chief ring stewards can find what they need, the gate sheets, the scribe sheets. There's boxes for the scribe sheets, which I know a lot of you already know all this because you've done the other jobs before. And just be there to help everybody find stuff. You can go back into the cabinet and find there's another little container that has all of the pens and pencils and staplers and paper clips and stuff that they need to just have in the office for the whole weekend. So just find all that stuff and get it out and ready for the scorers and the chief ring stewards. And then after the trial, you will then, so like I said, all your work is done pretty much before the trial. Once the trial starts, run your dogs, enjoy yourself. You've worked hard and you get to enjoy yourself. You may want to help out when they're looking for workers in the ring. You're not required to. If you do help out, you will not get compensated or into the raffle for that because you've already been well compensated, and we'll talk about that in 1 minute. But really, just enjoy the trial. Be available for any help that's needed. And then once the trial's over, you've got some work to do, and that is to make sure checks are written there, and there's a whole list of things that need to be done, checks that need to be written to the reviewer for the judges courses. They get a check, CPE gets a check. The software tells you what you need to pay them, and so that part is easy. You also work with the trial chair to figure out what is owed to the judge, and anybody else who might have handed you receipts, like your hospitality person or your awards person, if they bought some gift cards or whatever, because we do offer for the worker raffle. We need to compensate people for that. So just make sure all the checks are written. Check gets written to WAG for the facility rental. And then you'll take everything home, primarily the laptop. You don't need the printer anymore, but you'll take the laptop home, wait a day or so. You'll send out the final results to the exhibitors that day as soon as you can. People will see their results, then wait a day or so, see if anyone says, wait a minute, I thought we qualified or whatever. Typically, we don't fix things after the trial's over, but you can work with your trial chair and make judgment calls. It's not hard and fast. But typically the judge is gone, so you're not going to be able to fix things, and people should know that. But then there's a button you push in the software that sends everything electronically to CPE. We used to have to send them a lot more stuff by paper mail, but now we can do a lot of stuff just with the push of a button. The only things we need to actually snail mail to them are the checks that we owe them and the measure list. And there's a report that we print out. It's like 1 page, but everything else they get electronically. So there really isn't a lot that we have to send them, and we can send it just in a business size envelope, and boom, we do that as trial secretary. And that's it. Any questions?
I have a question, because you said that the secretary takes home the laptop. Where does the printer go? Doesn't it go home with you, with the secretary also?
It can, but if the secretary for the next trial wants to take it home, they can take it.
Okay. It
Don't-
isn't stored at WAG.
Don't leave it there. It's
Yeah,
too
it can't-
dirty and dusty.
Yeah.
Don't start a WAG.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty.
So, so the secretary then is writing the
No.
checks?
No.
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry. I didn't mean to make it sound like that.
Yeah.
Generally the treasurer just takes care of all the payments, and the people give the receipts to the treasurer and all of that.
Okay.
It all goes through the treasurer,
And-
who had the treasurer or the designated person.
You're right.
Yeah, and Anna's wonderful. She's generally always there at our trials, but in the past, we've had treasurers who aren't necessarily CPE, involved. And
Yeah.
so they might send checks, blank checks to you, or meet you and give you blank checks, but they've signed them and they've addressed them to the people they knew needed
Yeah.
checks, and then you just fill in the amounts. But we haven't had to do that in a while.
Or she has a designated person who
That just will go and
Yeah.
and
can do
that
it for
job.
her.
Yeah.
Designated Penny.
So we're not just handing out blank checks.
No. And actually, yeah, I found a few discrepancies in those cases. Anyway, yes, so all of that is the truth.
All right.
Compensation.
Okay, yeah, so here's the incentive to consider being a trial chair or trial secretary. You are comped 2 full entries as a trial chair. and as a trial secretary. So, and if you don't have 2 dogs that you're running in the trial the whole time, you will get certificates for the balance.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's because I wouldn't use 2 full entries. So if
Right.
you didn't get 2 full entries for like a previous trial that you just did, would you get a certificate for that you could use for the next one?
Correct.
Yes, you can use them in any way that
Oh, yeah.
you,
They're just regular hot dogs certificates. So you work it out with your trial chair, say, hey, you know, if it's a 5 runs each day, that'd be 10 runs. So I'm comped 20 runs, but I'm only running 8 for whatever reason. Then yeah, you'll get the certificate for the balance.
Okay, so if you were the trial chair, then you would talk to the president of the hot dogs?
well,
Trial
what
chair
I,
does-
I don't
Try
think, yeah, I think you would just sort of figure it out yourself. So if you had, so say you have 2 dogs that you run, but say you only were running 5, like for the trial, they each did,
2 and 3 or something, yeah.
yeah, 2 or 3. So say maybe they had 10 runs
And they
for
could
2
have had-
dogs.
Yeah,
So
right,
then you just have another certificate that you'd use another time.
okay.
Yeah. So
Who would
even
give you the certificate then?
the
The
yourself.
the
trial
chair requests them from Patty.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you would be giving them to yourself.
Yeah.
It's just, you figure out that you get an entry, you get a full dog's entry. So if if it is 10 runs, if there are 10 runs in that trial, or 12, if it's a 3-day trial, you have more. So you just figure out, what does this certificate mean? And the certificate means,
And I think it's just, you would email Patty, I love
Yeah.
who's on this call, and say, look, Patty, I'm trial chair. I'm only running 10 runs. I'm comped 20. So could you please send me certificates or yeah, just send me certificates to cover the other 10.
yeah. And she knows all the terms of
knows.
those certificates.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Only too well, right, Patty?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while now, yeah. Yeah,
And so as trial secretary, you need to know this because the other committee members are comped 1 full entry. So as you get entries for your committee members, you just want to check that they did their calculations right. So maybe you've got a committee member who's running 2 dogs. They're a CRS, so they're comped 1 full entry, but they're entering all the runs for all their dogs. So their second dog, they still have to pay for, but they pay the lower rate. So you know how it says if you're doing 8
Right.
to 10 runs, you get this amount, you know, you charge $13. And if you're running 10 to 15, you charge $12, whatever it is. You figure out what is their total number of runs, what would they have paid per run if they were paying for all of them, and then just use that dollar amount per run to figure out what they owe.
Okay,
For
yeah.
that second dog. Okay, hopefully I explained that right.
yeah, yeah.
So for the other committee members who are comped 1 full entry, should they not use their full entry? Do they also get certs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If they're not running a dog, then they'll get certs for another trial, whatever other trial they want to use them at. If they're running a dog, then they don't have to pay.
Mhm.
Was that question is, well, that's for later.
So if they, basically, again, if there's 10 runs and they only run 5, they'll get comp the 5 on certs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's like the equivalent. So they're
Yeah.
5 runs a day. If they only run 5 runs over the 2-day period, they'll get a cert for one entry, which is equivalent to 5 runs.
Yeah,
Okay.
1 day's
But-
1 days. Mhm.
okay, that's good. That's good.
okay. All right. That is the end of our little presentation. So I'm gonna stop sharing so we can all see each other again. Uh-oh, where's my sharing thing?
At the bottom.
Hit escape.
Oh, you know, there it is. Stop share.
There we
Yay, we're back. Okay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
You said something about the possibility of apprenticing.
Yes. Yeah.
So that seems like, I mean, I'm not sure if anybody has done that. But that is something that I would feel more comfortable doing the first time around, is, being an apprentice with somebody else.
Yeah, actually what we're calling it is shadowing. And depending on which position you're interested in shadowing. So for the January trial, Anna is the trial chair and Sue Horn is the secretary. And I've asked both of them if they're willing to have someone shadow them for this trial, and they both said yes. So for trial secretary, say, it's not like you're just going to go over there every time Sue gets a bunch of entries and watch her input them. You just work with her to figure out, what makes sense. When I was apprenticing, when I first did trial secretary, I didn't go down there to her house until she was ready to print stuff. And she just kind of showed me stuff then, and that may work best. It may also be a matter of, logistics for where people are proximity wise, to where they live. And it may also be that you just maybe have a couple chats via phone. But then for trial chair, if you want to shadow that position, you might just have a chat on the phone before the trial and then really do your shadowing at the trial. And just have